We now know that human activity is significantly changing the atmosphere. How is biodiversity responding to this? The biodiversity science investigates variations in different living forms, their distribution, genetic diversity, what are its functions in the ecosystem, how it changes, and why it changes over time. The distribution of organisms, abundance of organisms, relations between organisms, and the interactions with the environment is studied by ecology. Speciation, habitat, and extinction are the main tenets of conservation biology. How a species comes into being, what is the habitat it lives in, and how it goes extinct. Of all the species that have ever existed, 99.9% of them are now extinct.
Elephants are in deep trouble, and this is a forest elephant that's in deeper trouble than most. It was only recognized recently that forest elephants were a distinct species, and I think that distinct species may last a couple more decades at best. This is the Indian rhino, which is very rare. Like all the other rhinoceroses except the white rhino, it's severely endangered, and I suspect it won't be around for more than half a century. I don't think maybe any rhinoceroses will be around outside of zoos. The jaguar is the big spotted cat of the Western Hemisphere, sort of our equivalent of the leopard. Its range is shrinking, although it's a big range, and it may hang on till the end of this century. Nobody knows for sure. But fortunately, cats do breed well in captivity, so there'll probably be some live ones around as long as there are people around, but they won't be out in nature. Mouse lemurs, like all lemurs, live on Madagascar, and for a long time we thought there was just 2 kinds of them, but now I think they've discovered there's about 21 kinds of them. And a lot of them are very severely endangered because, of course, when you take 2 relatively rare animals and then divide them up by 10, they tend to occupy smaller areas and be more threatened. Bonobos, or pygmy chimpanzees, are our closest living relatives. They are more like us than standard chimpanzees. They solve their disputes by genital rubbing, which is something I highly recommend for our species. I think that they're going to be the next of our relatives to disappear. Grizzly bears are a good example of animals that were once very widespread and abundant and are now still widespread, but nowhere near as widespread. But they're becoming rarer and rarer, and of course, they compete with human beings and sometimes even eat them. I think they'll be around for quite a while because there's going to be a lot of human beings for them to eat. Tigers eat human beings just like grizzly bears do, but they're very highly persecuted, and although there were many different kinds long ago, several of the subspecies have already gone extinct, and all the others are rare. And I think they'll persist in zoos for a long time because they breed well, but by the end of this century, there are going to be few, if any, left in nature. Pangolins are weird-looking animals that are still quite common in many parts of Eurasia, southern Eurasia and Africa. But they're extremely valued in Chinese medicine and things like that. Their hair is formed into weird-looking scales, and the scales are actually used. And thousands of them are now being harvested to support Chinese medicine and similar things. And so they're all basically in trouble. Albatrosses are fascinating birds that stay aloft essentially forever, except when they're breeding. They're in deep trouble very often because they get tangled in fishing lines. One of the most interesting animals in Africa is the wild dog, or the hunting dog, which hunt in packs and have been severely endangered, among other things, by distemper transferred from domestic canines. They hunt as pursuit hunters and run down prey and then gobble it down and bring it back and throw it up into the mouths of their young at their dens. Fascinating animals, not long for this world.
Scientists estimate there were 8.7 million species, and we have discovered roughly 15% of them, and we are just one of them. And we should always remember that we are human animals. We need habitat, our life support systems, to survive as a species. And if you want to know what is happening to our life support systems, you have a nice model. You can go and press your flush, and the way water gets drained in the flush is the way our life support systems are getting drained. According to the UN Environmental Programme report from 2010, the Earth is in the midst of a mass extinction of life. Scientists estimate that up to 200 species of plant, insect, bird and mammal become extinct every 24 hours. At the background rates, loss of 200 species could take up to 10,000 years. So how faster is this? You could multiply 365 by 10,000. That is a 3.5 million times faster than the background rate. Honeybees are in significant decline. In fact, more than 85% of them were observed to be lost in Europe. More importantly, you should know that the geographical distribution, territory loss, is a better indicator, because the function of the species in the ecosystem is lost. Say we have 4 tigers in a zoo, and tigers in the ecosystem reduce the population of deer. The 4 tigers in the zoo are not playing their part. Or even 20 tigers in a zoo will not be playing their part in the ecosystem. Scientists find it very difficult to count species by sight. So what they have done is heard for sounds from the rainforest. This video emphasizes the sound of extinction. On the left bottom there's a graph that shows you the different sounds, the different wavelengths that were recorded in 2008 and in 2015. You see the significant change.
The Cornell Bioacoustical Laboratory has the largest repository of animal sounds on the planet. They've been collecting them since the 1930s.
So there's this range of sounds from the largest animal ever to live on this planet to the tiniest little insects. This is a song recording of a male oh-oh singing on Kauai. These birds mate for life, so he would be singing a duet with his mate where he sings and then she sings back and forth. Here comes the male song. There's no response. Here's the male song again. That's the last male of a species singing for a female who will never come. He is totally alone. And now his voice is gone.